you. Now, two of my guests tonight are observers of life on our planet. One is the evergreen David Attenborough, the other the ever-entertaining Eddie Izzard. Music from Chris Rea and David Gray. My first guest is journalist, cook, author, sex symbol, domestic goddess. Her television programmes have been described as seduction on toast. Another writer described her as chummy, plummy, yummy and funny. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigella Lawson. Well, you said, how can I live up to that? I know, but it's, I mean, it's extraordinary the way that journalists stretch their vocabulary writing about you, and it's international too.
Not only their vocabulary.
The New York Times, her sexy roundness makes cooking dinner with Nigella look like a prelude to an orgy. That's America. Australia, she's the Moll Flanders of cookery shows.
No, I haven't heard the one. I like your accent, may I say.
Do you like that? You just keep your top lip straight like to the passionate superstar of food porn. There you are. And you go, I mean, have they missed the point or what? I mean,
well, I don't think of myself as peddling pornography in the sense that I quite like the idea of everyone joining in. I think pornography is just about viewing in a rather disconnected way. But, you know, I'm fine with the idea of a culinary come-on because I'm interested in food, and in a way, what is the point of talking about food unless you arouse people's appetites?
But what interests you about food? What is it about food that makes you so passionate about it and interested in it?
Well, I'm greedy.
That's the best reason of all, I suppose.
I think so. I don't, you know, I'm very nervous when people talk about it as a great art. I mean, I think one of the interesting things about cooking is that it's practical, but there is an element that goes beyond that. But, you know, I started doing more cooking in a sense when I used to have to write a column or something like that. I would find just stirring something or chopping something would let me think about things in a way.
Yes.
And then I realized that actually there was a lot to be said for mindless repetitive activity. And that's why I went into television. So I like cooking and I like eating and I like that thing of feeding people. I mean, when we make the programs, you know, at the beginning there's a big sort of health and safety thing and no one's allowed to eat the food. If they do, that's at their own risk. You're not covered by insurance, and I take it all very personally. But what I like about the fact is the minute the director says cut, you know, the camera's down and everyone's eating the food. And in a way, it doesn't interest me if I'm not feeding people.
But the style of presentation, which has earned you this celebrity in a sense, I mean, it has made a huge difference. I mean, was that contrived? I mean, not to start with, but did you get this sense of, right, we've got something here, it's a good gimmick this, let's extend it, let's play
No,
on
I
it.
don't think so. I have to say, it was very difficult after the first series, because when you do the first series, you're just doing what you do without any thought really of being seen, which is maybe a naive thing to say when you're doing television, but of course when you're doing it, you're just doing it. And then once critics have said things or viewers have said things, then you start thinking, I don't want to get self-conscious, which is why actually I never watch the programme. But, you know, a lot of it is what's done in the editing room and how it's done on camera.
It's
you
you.
know.
It's you.
Well,
it's
I
your
babble.
personality.
I tell you what, I do it. I'm not scripted. I just go into this kind of babble that you hear now.
Yes.
And
about
so,
disemboweling lemons.
Yeah.
And putting your hands into soft and. Well, I mean, it gets them going wherever it is, Nigella. I mean,
I like doing it, and I think that's quite important.
Well, again, I mean, it doesn't work unless you're enthusiastic.
No, I know.
I mean, that's the other thing that comes across. I mean, we've got the greatest exponent of that coming on later on, David Attenborough.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, never lost that sense of wonder about things. But I mean, what's interesting to you? You're a journalist. I mean, and so if you were writing a column now and you looked at yourself,
I would be so horrible about myself.
Would you?
Yeah.
Oh, would you really?
Actually, the funny thing is, when How to Be a Domestic Goddess came out, and I was, you know, railed against for being, you know, a traitor to the sisterhood, despite the fact that it was so obviously ironic. I felt, you know, if I'd been filing a column, I would have done exactly the same. So I feel fine, you know. We've all got inches to fill, so therefore, let's not worry about it.
But what about when you're satirised, when the comedians get hold of you, when they send you up? What do you think about that? You've seen that happen, haven't you? I mean, you don't.
Yes, but if it makes me laugh, I'm fine. I mean, I don't take myself seriously, I can tell you.
No, well, that's
I mean, there's not the opportunity for that.
A prerequisite of being in television to do that. But I mean, what about dead ringers? Do you see that sketch?
I did. I thought it was so funny.
All right, well, I think it's funny too. But let's have a look at this, because I think it's a wonderful, wonderful sketch.
So plunge your hands into this bowl of lovely chopped fresh fruit. Should be really oozing with juices. Well, it could be oozing with juices. Could be any similarly sexual connotation, really, like pink and fleshy or succulent and ripe, whatever, really. Irritatingly, as well as being stunningly beautiful, I'm apparently a really nice person as well. So bringing out the thumb first, and then each finger in turn, and sucking each one really languidly and erotically, so that nobody really gives a toss what you're cooking anyway.
It's
very funny.
Yeah.
I like the way they get the camera work exactly right as well.
Yes, it's a correct impression
You know, I
of the
never
style.
mean anything. When I read or something that's meant to be a do
Nigella.
dog blonde, I never mean it like that.
You do, you can, you must do.
No, I don't. This is what's pathetic. I really don't.
I'm not talking to some naive young person.
Thank you for reminding me
I'm talking to a
past
woman
my
of the
youth.
world. Moll Flanders, indeed.
Yeah.
She came to a sticky end, if I remember rightly.
She did. She had fun on the way.
She did. Were you from a foodie family? I mean, your dad was Nigel Lawson, who was a journalist, and then, of course, Chancellor of the Exchequer. Your brother Dominic is an editor. You had sisters. I mean, was it a family centred around food?
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, a greedy family. I mean, I wouldn't say that... It's not about talking about sort of rarefied dishes, but I do seem to remember when people came round for tea, they were always surprised to see, you know, when you were eating, we would be talking about other meals we had eaten or what we might be having later on in the week. And then, of course, when I was a child, it wasn't really done to talk about food.
Yes.
In a way, it wasn't a big deal. It was considered very, I don't know, slightly distasteful. It wasn't polite.
You read when I read about you, you seem to have been a strange child. So quiet, stubborn child.
I wasn't. Well, maybe I was stubborn. Maybe stubborn people never realise they're stubborn. They just think everyone else is being difficult.
What about your attitude toward examinations? I mean, that was a stubborn streak, wasn't it? What did you do
Well,
there?
that's partly to do with the age I was brought up in, because I'd been to progressive school, and when I did the 11 plus, I put my hand up and I said, but I was doing maths, and I said, excuse me, I don't do this. Because I'd been to a school where you only did, you know, what you felt like. So consequently, by the age of 9, I'd read all the Brontes, but I'd never done any maths or anything like that. In fact, later on, when geography was made compulsory, my father, who considered himself a man with some authority, went to school and said, it's really ridiculous. Nigella really doesn't have to do geography to O-level, and I don't think it's necessary. And they said, sorry, it's compulsory. She absolutely has to. So then my mother wrote a letter saying, Nigella is far too highly strung for a subject like geography. And I was the only girl in the school who didn't have to do it. Imagine how much the geography mistress liked me.
I don't think you're strange at all. You've got great common sense, actually. But you talked earlier about the part that cooking had played in your life, and again, reading about you, it seems to me that at kind of crucial and stressful times in your life that you've turned to cooking as well. For instance, you wrote your first book after your mother had died young, and your sister too. Both had died when they were young people, basically. And you immersed yourself in writing a book then.
It took me a while to be able to do that. I think when everything was too raw, I couldn't. And then later, I think food is about life. And writing about food is about accepting being alive and actually enjoying it. And it was also a way of kind of continuing conversations I'd had with them, because conversations in my family run something like, what did you have for lunch? What are you going to have for dinner? And so I didn't have the chance to speak to them, and so I just was chatting in that way.
So we're working through it. And then, of course, when your husband John Diamond, he had cancer too, and then again you threw yourself into your work then, didn't you, for an obvious reason in a sense?
Well, you know, I had to earn money. That
Yes.
was, you know, a very good reason.
I suppose it was also a way of
and I could do it, and I could
coping.
work at home.
Yes.
It's certainly true. I'm never quite comfortable about the idea of it as therapy, in the sense that it assuages in some sense, but it also is. I think it's better to be occupied. You know, I think that when you try and relax with a capital R is when your anxieties rise to the surface. And I think on the whole it's better to do things than to sit around. So I would find it was just a way of maybe keeping calm but also busy, and I think it's important to be busy. But as I say, I also needed to find a way of earning money without leaving the house.
John also found his own way around it too, his problem, by writing about it. It became public. We had a weekly column that he wrote about it. There was a play done about it, a book about it.
I used to say, when's the T-shirt coming out?
Did it, I mean, you see, what one read about when you read John's column was this kind of, almost in a sense, cheery summary of a terrible, terrible problem. Was it like that, really?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, John was a very, very funny person, so the funniness was completely him. But what fits into 800 words is not a whole life. And, you know, the torture and the misery and the rage, completely justifiable, can't come through. So in a way, I think it was very helpful in some respects to John writing the column. But on the other hand, it meant maybe everything was slightly held at a distance because it became a journalistic problem, which he said, you know, of himself.
Yes,
but on the other hand, you know, rereading them, they are incredibly wonderful columns.
Oh, and what about the business? You suffering the 3 losses, 3 people that you loved dearly, very close to you, all of whom died young from cancer. I mean, what view is that? How has that affected you and your view of the world?
I don't think it's made me into always the most charitable person. I mean, I think suffering is meant to make you better, but I do feel sometimes, you know, full of rage at the world.
Like what?
I feel there's a great need in the world, I think, because everyone wants everything to be nice and okay, to try and, you know, see a reason in what happens, or to see patterns, to make sense of things. And I think that, you know, the world is full of great random cruelties, and what is unacceptable is unacceptable. So I don't suddenly turn into someone who says, well, that's how things are meant to be. But on the other hand, I do feel that life is very precious and should be enjoyed. So you know, much as I will say that to you now, I try not to go around in a kind of rant and a gloom, and try and feel that I'm lucky to be alive and to make the most of it.
After he died, shortly after he died, you became attached to another man. And some people criticised you in the press for that, thinking it unseemly. Perhaps there was not a decent period of mourning. I think that was the thrust of their argument. What was your attitude toward that?
Well, you know, I think that life is so different from the inside and from the outside, and I think probably I'd have felt the same looking at it from the outside, but when you go through something in life, you really haven't got time to think about how something seems. You have to feel that you're doing what's right, and I suppose you have to grasp onto life, and you can't think, oh, I'm going to wait for a decent interval and then decide to fall in love, because bad things happen and good things happen, and one has very little control over either, I mean, in terms of just chance occurrences. So I understand what people feel, but as long, I suppose, as, you know, I feel as long as my family is happy, you know, my children are happy, and
they are.
I mean, they've had an enormous loss, and that can't be made good, but they're happy. And I suppose that's important. I can't really be worrying all the time about what people think, as long as I feel I can give an account of my behaviour to myself.
And John, of course, himself gave you his blessing, didn't he? I mean, in his column, he said you better take those wedding pictures down.
Yes, I know. And I
might
say,
ruin your chances.
I know. He used to say, I like to think of them really queuing around the block. And I used to say, please, will you stop it? But I think maybe this is something that if you have a resolved and good relationship with someone, there's not that sense of having to justify or to have those sort of questions or remorse, so that maybe it is possible to move on. I mean, moving on doesn't mean you forget or that someone ceases to be part of your life. Yeah. I think there's a difference.
Again, looking at the effect that your work has on your life, or the way that your work responds to your life, in a sense. This new book that you've got out, the new program that you've been doing on Channel 4, I mean, that reflects a new opening for you, doesn't it? A new attitude, if you like.
Well, I suppose so. I mean, it is, you know,
am I seeing something into it that's not there?
No, I think you're right. This notion of forever summer, which was in a way, I suppose it sounds as if everything now, everything's great, you know, the blossom's out, we can all have sunshine forever. And I certainly didn't mean that, but I think it's true to say that the 2 books I'd done previously were were rather imbued with an atmosphere of the curtains were closed and you were clinging to the kitchen for comfort and warmth.
Yes, yes.
And this is more outward looking.
Yes.
But on the whole, I still think, you know, there's light and shade in life at all times, I think, and I wouldn't want to be too blindly optimistic about anything, except that I suppose, you know, I am happy, and that's a good thing.
Oh, that's the most important thing. And of course, your career is really on the up and up internationally, because not only here, but in America too, as I said, and in Australia as well. So how are you taking the international start a bit in America? Have you...
Well, the thing is, it's just quite nice to be doing something a bit different.
Yes.
I mean, it's sort of much the same, but it's different, and I quite like going to America and doing it. Of course, it's such a huge country that I never go to teeny weeny little bits of it. But anyway, you know, that's fun.
What about, though, the future? I mean, looking ahead, because, I mean, you're now... I'm all right, you have this reserve that a lot of journalists have or pretend to have about being, you know, on television. Oh, really, it's not me, really. But, of course,
I'm afraid it is me.
It is you. It's great fun.
And I don't have the talent to be anyone else.
You fit it, and it suits you, too. So, therefore, the question is, of course, I mean, where do you see the future? I mean, will it always be in this area of television, or do you have ambition beyond that?
Well, I have no idea. You know, I've never planned a thing in my life. I always kind of feel I just lurch from crisis to crisis, and that suits me, and then I deal with what happens. I mean, I had no idea I would ever be a food writer. I mean, the idea that I'd be doing a cooking show, I mean, I couldn't have imagined it, so I've got no idea what I'll end up doing. Probably that's just as well.
Nigella Lawson, thank you very much indeed. Nigella Lawson. Well done. Music now. My next guest tonight is one of my favourite singer-songwriters, here singing Dead in the Water from his new album, eagerly awaited one too, A New Day at Midnight. Welcome, please, David Gray.
People stand in line. People stand in line. People stand in line. A premonition now. The killer's angel eye. An Armageddon sky. Tell it like it is. It's like the old man said. Dead in the water now. We're dead in the water. They come from miles around. They come from miles around. They come from miles around. They never listen loud. Suckle on the blood. Some forgotten God, sell it like it is. It's like the old man says, we're dead in the water now. We're dead in the water now. Dead in the water. A simple act of faith. A simple act of faith. A simple act of faith. A celebration now. The color and the creed. The cancer and its seed. Crackles on the mind. Call it what you like. We're dead in the water now. We're dead in the water now. We're dead
David Gray, more music, this time from Chris Rea, later on in the programme. My next guest is the stand-up comic who became a star of stage and screen. In his latest movie, he plays a German cowboy, proving he is fearless as well as versatile. Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Izzard. You're remarkably dapper tonight.
Yes, I'm in a dapper. I didn't do the stop. Because there's always a stop at the top, which I think is a hangover from 50s variety. So I just came on down, because I thought the British public could deal with it.
It's not the British place. Can the cameramen deal with it? You see,
No, I think everyone can do it, but I think they stopped to do a sort of...
I like that stop. No, it's nice.
No, I just think... No, well, I think option of stop. You could say that you can stop up there, or just go on down and meet Michael. And... everyone's gone weird now.
You're such a rebel.
I'm a rebel in stare arrival.
Now, tell me about this German cowboy.
Well, he's German.
He's a cowboy.
Yeah, well, it's a French Western and...
a French Western?
Yeah. Well, it's written by the French. We laugh and we laugh. And then, of course, spaghetti Westerns, we go, oh, no, the Italians did all right. And they filmed them in Spain. And so, because obviously when, you know, Clint Eastwood was first talking about his film, they got an Italian Western, a little there. Oh, it's working really well, isn't it? Yeah, it was French and written by the French. Oh, it's from a graphic novel that's very well known in France and Germany. But it's a Western.
Graphic novel?
A graphic novel. Or what? Pornographic?
Yes, I didn't...
It is also a pornographic novel.
And are you acting in French? Because I know you've
just
done
got
it.
porn on the brain, haven't you? No, because, no, it's English. Sorry, you look aghast.
It's in English?
Yes, it's in English. English spoken, because they just wanted it to go everywhere.
American cast.
And American cast, and Mexican cast, and Spanish, and just anyone.
Anyone who would...
Who would... do porn. Oh, right.
I'm not interested in porn at all.
No, I understand.
Sorry,
no, it was, yeah. So it's just too difficult to explain.
Nigella, can I have my guest back?
Why Nigella, though? Did your dad just go, oh, shove an A on it? And
There's an L. There's a very important extra L.
But is anyone else called Nigella?
Yep.
All right.
But Nigella's...
There is actually...
flower,
there's a 15th century madrigal that's called No, 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 Nigella. Also, it's actually a spice. It's a spice. So it's sometimes called black onion seed.
Is there any human being?
Yeah, there was a mountain climber.
All right.
With Nigella. Female.
Okay. One person. There's one person. I just thought it's like Shula in The Archers. You know, no one's called Shula. It's actually Sheila, but it was a typo. Have you ever met anyone called Shula? I mean, but it's your name, and I know it's cool. But it's just it looks like your dad just went, oh, an L and an A, and off you go.
We were talking about cowboy movies, actually. Yes. And was it an ambition of yours to play a cowboy?
Well, yes, in the sense that I never really... people have asked about what's the kind of roles you'd like to do, and I never sort of think, oh, I want to play this role, I want to play that role, because they might not come up. But absolutely everyone on the film wanted to do the Western. I mean, after you know, Michael Madsen's in it, and the first day I was up there in the desert with a Mexican actor as well, none of us could ride. And the brilliant thing about riding is when you're a kid or when you're in normal life, they say you've got to be trained, you've got to wear the safety helmet, you need a lot of preparation. Have you done this before? No, we'll just do you on a trot and someone will hold you in a bag and stuff like this in case you fall off. You know, a lot of safety. In films, it's like, can you ride? Well, not. We'll get on the horse and gallop up there, leave off, pick up a daisy, turn around, shoot the guy in the head, and then gallop over, leap over the small child, playing a banjo and singing, I'm a ukulele dandy, or whatever, you know, and it's just go for it. And that was our first shot.
Wonderful.
Was Chiricahua over there, let's go. And quite often, Antonio, the Mexican actor, was facing me. You know, we had to go that way, and I thought, this is not good. And then we just, and at the end of this gallop, when we'd stopped our horses, who wouldn't stop, because they're big Mexican horses, we'd have to turn them in a circle to stop. We just laughed and laughed and went, God, we're in a Western. And it was that. And we almost died. Every shot we did, we almost died. But it was safe.
I understand. I understand that. I'd love to be.
But you know, it was, and even the makeup department on the show I'm working on at the moment, 40, and your makeup department, oh, I'd like to do a Western.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do a Western.
Absolutely. That's what you wanted to be, an actor, wasn't it, rather than a stand-up comic? Yeah.
When I was 7, I didn't know, I liked humour. There's a lot of comedy in the family, but I just wanted to be an actor. I was 7. I saw a kid getting a lot of applause. My mother died when I was 6, and I think it was an affection machine swap kind of thing, like an audience applause. That's nice because my mum's gone, and I think that's where it started, which is quite a healthy way of dealing with loss if you get sort of acceptance from an audience, because you really have to work for it. It won't be quite like a mother's love, which is sort of unconditional. Even if you do a terrible painting, they go, fantastic, you know. It's obviously not. With audiences, you really have to work with it. But it started at 7, and I just wanted to be an actor, and I got no roles at all. No roles at school. Maybe because I was bad, or because they were terrible at, you know, they just couldn't see talent. But I think maybe I was really bad. This is horrible.
And you were a street performer, weren't you, for a while as well? That must be tough.
I was initially a double act, and we used to do failed tricks, like escaping from a woolly jumper was one. You know, they're kind of obviously stupid. And sometimes people go, hey, those people are crazy. And sometimes they go, God, that's awful. And then we did a sword fighting act, which was quite good, and we actually would try and kill each other on certain days. We'd have big arguments. Double acts do this, have a huge argument, and then go out and do a really pretty good show, actually, because anger is very good for performing it. And we'd be trying to kill each other, basically, and people say, that was quite realistic. And then I got into escapology, as you do. And I did accounting and financial management at college, so this all just flows.
The seamless flow to your career. Absolutely seamless flow. You could see it happening. Very predictable. Yeah.
But it taught me how to deal with people who don't even want to watch you in the first place. You know, like the audience here.
When you were growing up performing, how much of a problem did it appear to you it might be, the fact that you're a transvestite? I mean, in terms of letting people know. I was
trying to do shock there, as if, what? What? Oh, God, I am, aren't I?
My God, the secret.
Yes, well, I didn't tell anyone, so it wasn't a problem. Well...
No, but I mean, no, it was a secret.
Yeah, it was a secret up to... I actually came out before I became a street performer.
Oh, you did?
And then I sort of went half back into the closet, which is quite weird. This is a long conversation, but I'll make it very quick. Being a straight transvestite, I fancied women, but like a male tomboy thing, and so I didn't tell anyone about the girls, or the clothes stuff, or the whatever it is. And then at 23, I came out, and that was great, and I went around the dress for 6 months, and then we were just talking about focal tights, by the way, which are fantastic and very expensive.
Stockings, please.
Stockings or tights?
Really?
Yes, I've lost everyone again.
No,
the focal are great because, you see, you can get a bullet hole in them and they won't ladder. In case you're an action transvestite like me and you get...
Well, you went in your Western.
Yeah, well, I've done another film which is more confusing. But anyway, where was it? So, yeah, I came out and then I thought, I'm not going to be a street performer and wear makeup because that's going into drag, and I'm just a blokey transvestite, kind of action transvestite. So I went kind of back into the closet, did this strange show, Escapology, and then I started doing stand-up, and then when that started getting somewhere, I thought I'd better tell the press, so I told the Observer, and...
Nobody found out for years.
I just told the Observer, I just phoned up the desk. No, I was doing an interview with someone who was going to write for the Observer, and I thought they'd deal with it in a kind of, rather than a, hey, he's a who is he? We don't know, but he's a transvestite. Kill him with sticks. Which I thought they might go for if I told some other newspapers. But they were kind of, and then I just talked about it. And
what kind of reaction did you get, though? Did you get abused? Did you get attacked?
No, very good. Everyone was kind of chilled out. And even my dad, who I told after a Crystal Palace football match.
What did you say to him?
Well, I thought, I can't tell him in the football match because we could lose. And then he goes, he's a transvestite and we lost. And then we were walking back with all the fans, and I just thought, he said, you're a transvestite? And all the fans going like this, so I thought... And then we got back to Croydon, and they said, let's go and eat something. So we went to this cafe that was there, and there was a back room, so I thought, that's pretty good. And there was someone sitting on that table, no one on that table. We sat there, and then these people got up, and I thought, this is bells ringing, time to tell your dad. It was 6 years after I'd come out. And as I said, and I had many different reactions ready. Him going, or going, you know... I said, Dad, I'm a transvestite, and he went, OK. And that was it.
Good.
And then he wrote a letter to me saying he thought it was OK, and if my mum was alive, he thought she'd be OK with it too, which is an amazing letter.
How old were you when you first became aware that you were transvestite?
I was 4 or 5. Really? Yeah. And there was a kid, brother of some girl was wearing his dress, and I thought, hey, I'm into that. And then I thought, because everyone was laughing at this kid, and I thought, well, I'd better not tell anyone. I just got a good vibe that this was not a cool thing to say at the time. Whereas now, if I was 4 again, I wouldn't say anything either. It's just my survival technique. So I knew at that age, and then I just, well, I'm kind of a stubborn bastard, and like my dad, and so I'm kind of a good person to come out and deal with this, because if there is any flack, I'll just deal with it and keep going like some sort of hand.
But well, I mean, when do you wear frocks and things?
Sorry?
When do you wear frocks?
When I want to.
When you want to?
Like when you can wear trousers and flat shoes, can't
Not
you?
with my bottom.
Well, there we go. Well, you could, if you wanted to, you have the right to, under international society law. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's true. It's true. We live in a tolerant society. I can wear trousers.
Yeah. For women, because women get a lot of...
But do you understand? I mean, do women understand more than men, perhaps, what the transvestite thing at all?
No, I mean, I would think things. I would think things that I know that you don't agree with.
What?
Because I would think that it has
Kill 'em
some
with
link with your
sticks?
mother dying.
No, well, I thought
And
that,
I
but then
know-
why
I
did
know
I
you
know when I was 4 and she died when I was 6?
I don't know, but I can't help feeling there must be some.
Well, I can help
link.
you.
I know. I've
No,
heard
I know.
You say
I know
before.
that. I've thought about that, and maybe there is, and I'm open to that. But
I think there are more than human sort of action has more than one motivation. And there's not one thing that makes you do something ever. So,
no, I agree with that. But are you bisexual or lesbian?
Do you know? I wish I could say yes, but no.
Well, then back off, baby. Because, but I know what you're saying. But
What am I saying?
well, you're just saying. I feel logically you would think
There's
well,
a connection.
No, it could well be, but I think
You
it's
think
genetic.
not?
I think because I just knew it, it just stayed
You think
the
it's
same.
genetic?
Oh yeah, genetic or chromosomes, whichever ones. Why do men have nipples? No reason, unless we're all human units who are ready
Or
for
maybe
being
David
girls or boys.
can help.
But you know the nipple thing. There's no point, is there?
And it's vestigial.
Is it? Just run vestigial by me.
It means it's like a trace because it's from an early part of development and it's no longer needed, but the trace remains.
Exactamundo. No longer needed. But at the beginning, they're saying, "Ooh, what should we? Girl, boy, girl." There's someone up there, or someone, or a thing going, "Girl, boy, girl." What? Oh, girl, boy. Both hermaphrodite. Darwinism.
Well, that was fascinating. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad I asked the question and it got the response.
But one thing, it's
Go
a
on.
gift.
It's a gift.
It is
What
a gift. Being transgender, being alternative sexuality, it is a gift. If you can face it, come out with it.
In what sense is it?
In the sense that you have to do this quest of coming out, dealing with... I mean, when I came out, I could ask 6 billion people in the world, should I come out? My stand-up's just taken off after years. And I think 6 billion people would say no. Or even if I wasn't in stand-up, I'd go, no, don't come out. Just stay in and hide because you like women, and so just don't tell anyone. But it's so much better if you come out. You just realise that you're scared, the fear is in your brain, and I said to my dad, I think the British public could deal with it if I came out and just said, this is my space, I'm being honest, I'm telling truth. So I think the British public will groove with it, and the world public will, and the British public have. They've been, hey. Most of them just go, yeah.
So, what's the future then with you? More movies. You've got this video, The Circle, which is you in New York, actually, the town hall in New York. Now, this is a tough gig, America, for any comedian, stand-up or otherwise, to crack who comes from here.
Apparently so. I don't think it is so tough, but there's a weird thing that comedians tend to hit in their 30s for some reason, because it's not so much image-driven, it's more you've got to be able to deliver the humour. Quite often, 30s, or with people with families, comedians have families by the time they hit, and then they have to go to America and start again, and that's tough, whereas I just wanted to get America. It's just putting in the time in, because I went there in 96, went there in 97, then in 98, 4 months in New York, and then going down the West Coast, and then it started to take off, and now it's crazy over there. I can't move. I can actually. No, I'm kind of that big over there.
And also, too, I mean, you mentioned you're a stubborn sort, and you are, because, I mean, apart from going out to America like that, which requires a great amount of guts. Also, too, I mean, you've taken your act, your stand-up act, to France, and
Yes.
you've done your act in French.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
Now-
doing an act in French is... Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, how difficult is that? Talk about losing this audience, what about that audience?
Well, once you've come out as being a transvestite, you can do gigs in French. And they sort of go hand in... Well, it isn't... It's not so scary, because I've moved my scary threshold down, you see, or up, or whichever way it is. I just do the same show in French, and they like it. They don't really have stand-up comedy. They're not really set up for someone being a transvestite, and they don't really... They're a bit confused. The English guy's going to speak French. But afterwards, they come up and go, hey, what the hell were you doing? But I managed I could do this thing because transvestite in French is travesty. So which is exactly, this is the problem. I was saying, travesti, c'est un mot très difficile pour moi parce que je suis un transvestite en Angleterre, mais travesti ici. Mais en anglais, travesti, ça veut dire catastrophe. So in France, I feel like I'm going around saying, bonjour, je suis un catastrophe. Je suis catastrophe. Et Izzard, oui, stand-up comedian, catastrophe. And, you know, it's difficult enough, but I got to say I'm a catastrophe as well. I am a travesty. I wish they could have a different word, like jam or something.
And Germany next?
Well, there's no German promoter who'll take me on at the moment. They don't want me. And Paris didn't really want me, but I'm just this hand thing.
That's right. What more
It's a shark as well.
what greater incentive could you have that they don't want you?
I think they do, but they just don't know it.
My money's on you, actually. Conquering Germany and the world. Eddie Izzard. My final guest has been making natural history programmes for 50 years. He's one of the great communicators and teachers of our time. His genius is that in 50 years, he's never lost his sense of wonder.
I can see its tail just under my boat here. And it's coming up, coming up. There! The blue whale! It's the biggest creature that exists or has ever existed on the planet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sir David Attenborough. Since you joined the BBC.
Yes, sir.
As a radio producer, you applied for the job.
Yes, sir.
What did they tell you?
No good. They didn't even interview me.
Didn't they?
No, no. I mean, in 1952, television was nothing. You know, tiny little audience. The big thing was radio. I had never seen television. I wanted to get into radio. So I applied for a job and advertised, and they said, don't bother. And then weeks after that, or like a month after, I was working in publishing, I got a letter from someone who said, we've got this other thing. You know, it's up in the North London. It's just a little couple of studios. It's called television, and a lot of people think it's not rubbish really, but it could be good. Would like to come? And I thought, well, I don't know, because you were working in publishing.
Oh, yeah.
It's boring, isn't it? So I thought, well, we'll try television. So and
that was the start of it.
Yeah.
You also did some interviewing, didn't you, to start with?
My first job, while I was trying to get out of publishing and into television, they rang up and they said, while you're waiting, we've got a programme when we're short of an interviewer. Would you like to be an interviewer? And I said, well, why not? and the first chap I had to interview was an athlete, a long-distance runner. And I'm sure he's a very nice bloke.
Gordon Perry.
Oh, I was going to be tactful.
No, careful. Because I've interviewed him too, and he's the most boring man in the world.
Well,
I mean, he was a very great athlete, but that didn't make him a great talker.
no, he wasn't as good as all that, and I wasn't as good an interviewer as all that either. And, I mean, the trick in interviewing, isn't it, is that you don't give the leading question, isn't it? You're supposed to, you know.
That's right.
So, but this guy, I mean, he wouldn't say anything. So this is the first time I'd ever done this, and I said, you're an athlete, and do you have special training? Yeah. Well, I mean, anything particular? Well, it says here that you wear hobnail boots when you train. He said, yeah. So I said, well, why do you wear hobnail boots when you train? He said, because when I take them off, I go faster. Well, it wasn't very good. No. And I went home and my wife said, you were wonderful. But nobody else said I was wonderful. And I wasn't asked to do another interview for quite a long time. I was supposed to be a producer, you see.
There's a memo around, wasn't
Well,
saying that you don't fit.
years later, like 20 years later, when the producer of that particular programme was going to leave the staff of the BBC, I had the job of making a speech to say goodbye. And the tradition in the BBC is that you're sent the personal file, you know, you release through all the personal files, see if you can find something embarrassing. And I came across this memo. And it was said, David Attenborough is an intelligent young man, but he should not be used as an interviewer again. His teeth are too big.
Sorry. Only in the BBC.
Are you? You'll be a terrific interviewer.
Your teeth aren't that big.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I still have to have you on every show, Nigella, actually, the kind of sort of the cement in the meat in the sandwich, so to speak.
The meat in the sandwich?
Oh, see what I'm trying to say?
I mean,
I'm a catalyst, no, I'm not trying to say.
You mix your messages as much as you like.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go back to those early days, because you were responsible for actually bringing, first of all, thinking about bringing animals onto television, weren't you?
Well, in the early days, natural history programmes, animal programmes, consisted of live animals, because everything was live.
Yes.
And there was the curator in the zoo who went round the cages and stuffed these poor animals in sacks and took them up to Alexandra Palace and then brought them out and put them on a doormat on a table and said, well, that's an armadillo and this is an anteater and so on. Of course, they didn't care for it very much. So they either bit him, which was quite good, or wet down his front, which was very good. And occasionally they used to escape, which was best, really. And there would be keepers from the zoo on either side, ready to field it, like in the rugby, you know. But once there was a little thing called a flying squirrel, North American thing. And there were, instead of having these microphone things, they had booms, you know, that came on. And the chap from the zoo said, and now I'd like to show you this charming little fellow. There's a flying squirrel. And the flying squirrel went up there, went, and it jumped onto the boom, the microphone boom. So he said, oh, what about a bit of peanuts or anything? See, nothing good. And the flying squirrel shot along the boom, jumped into the lighting gantry. And so he said, well, what I show you now is an armadillo, you see. So we left the thing. But I knew, and indeed most viewers knew, that we only had 2 studios in the whole of the United Kingdom. And that squirrel was going to be in that studio, and it went into one of the ventilation ducts. So there was going to be another programme from that same studio the evening. And it was an epilogue, as a matter of fact. And there was a bishop in full... a kind of transvestite bishop, you know what I mean?
Well, they all are.
So he was there saying something pretty solemn, and he had a Corinthian column at the back with a bit of grey velour, you know. Yes, exactly. And we all, I mean, those of us in the business, we suddenly saw there was the little flying squirrel at the top of that column, you see, and while he was going on, so dearly beloved, this thing was going... Tremendous. It was the best epilogue we ever had. And it went on appearing in various programmes, dramas, for weeks.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
well, yeah, absolutely. What about I mean, you've seen all these extraordinary changes. You've seen television go from that, cameras on these huge pram wheels that they used to have, that awfully sort of primitive technology, to now to a situation where in your latest epic, which is The Life of Mammals, you've got these extraordinary cameras on the end of cords, which you can probe into.
Unbelievable.
And in the sequence that I've seen, the first episode, There's one where you show the birth of a platypus, and then in another series where you actually go inside, for the first time ever, a beaver's house.
And that was fabulous. You know, beavers in the winter, they have this big domed chamber, and it freezes solid, so it's concrete hard on the outside with logs on it. And inside, there are the little beaver families. You see, they're having a nice time, warm, and there are two holes in the floor which lead down into the lake that they've created with their dam. And the function of the lake, amongst other things, is to act as a fridge. Because if you get green, well, you know, you tell me, but if you get green and keep it very close to freezing, it'll stay fresh for a long time, won't it? So that's what the beavers do. And they sit in this darkness in the middle of winter, and then they dive down, go through the tunnel, fetch out this a sprig of green leaves, and bring it back in, sit in the lodge, and the whole family sits around, has a bit of tucker, which is very nice. At least that's what we thought they did, but nobody had actually ever seen inside the beaver's lodge in winter. So what we did was we bored a hole through the top of the beaver lodge and put in this tube, which is fiberglass optical thing that surgeons put down your throat to look inside your stomach, but the same sort of device. Yes. And there we could see the beavers. We had to put in our own lights, and the beavers, of course, are normally in pitch dark. And there they all were, chewing away as these nice leaves and so on. And suddenly we saw what we thought were tiny little miniature beavers in there. I thought, it can't be the cubs, the young, the kits, as they call them. And we suddenly realized that they were actually muskrats, a completely different species. Nobody knew this, but there's a completely different species that's living in there and eating the beaver's food alongside the beavers. Now, they're in the pitch dark and it's jolly cold, so you don't smell much. So whether the beavers knew that they were there or not, we don't know. But then we filmed more, and these little muskrats will go out, and you'll see them in the film. They go out and they get hold of the water weeds and pull the water weeds back. So bit of bedding, what about a bit of tucker, you know? And so they eat the food and provide the beavers with bedding. Fascinating. Nobody's seen it before.
Wonderful. You've never lost it, I said in my introduction, your sense of wonder about this, have you?
I don't think anybody does, really.
You don't?
No, if you've never seen a butterfly crawl out of a chrysalis, if you've never seen a chrysalis split, and a butterfly, or a dragonfly, perhaps even commoner, crawl up a reed, stretch out these wings, pumping a liquid in so that the wings stretch, and then sit there in the sunshine with just a faint tremble while it dries. I don't believe there's anybody who can watch that happen and not think it's pretty marvellous.
What is it about the enduring popularity of shows such as the ones that you do? Why do the public...
Natural history?
Yes.
It seems to me the most obvious thing in the world. I mean, to start with, they're not about people, which is quite good. Yes, right. But it's mostly, you know, I mean, people are mostly doing ghastly things to one another. So it's quite refreshing to see they're not, mind you, animal. Come to think of it, animal.
They tear each other's heads off, don't they?
But only because they're hungry.
Yes.
No political reason.
Not necessarily. It's because they're sex mad. But anyway. There's no politics.
That's another film.
That's another film. There are no politics. They are marvellously beautiful. They are totally unexpected. Nobody's trying to sell you anything. It's full of drama, often things you've never known before in your life. It seems absolutely wonderful. I mean, I watch natural history programs all the time. I don't mean mine, I mean other people's.
But in your 50 years of doing this, I mean, you've compiled a catalogue of programs that's never been surpassed, and I doubt that it will, actually, the way television's going. But I mean, so what you've got there is a depiction that you're responsible for of natural history for the past 50 years. Now, the question is, how will succeeding generations see that as a reminder, the only vision they have of a species?
Well, I hope to goodness that won't be the case. I mean, it is perfectly true that over 50 years, I mean, if you keep at it for 50 years, you can hardly fail to compile a certain sort of back record. And in that 50 years, the Natural History Unit at the BBC has covered all forms of life, I mean, really, and documented it very well. I mean, if there was a nuclear catastrophe, if there was something ghastly, if there was a steady degradation of the planet and the forest, tropical rainforest disappeared forever, there would be quite a good picture for people to remind them of the glory that was once there. But that has not yet happened. In my lifetime, there's no important major species that has disappeared.
Well, this is interesting, because one has this sort of sense of foreboding.
Well, I have a sense of foreboding, and quite a lot of important species have got much rarer, but some actually have got better. There are more mountain gorillas now than when I first encountered mountain gorillas, which is marvellous. On the other hand, what is disappearing all the time is habitat. And the forests are contracting, and to that extent there's diminution, which is terrible.
You don't like being called an animal lover, do you?
No, I'm not an animal. It depends what you mean by a lover. But I mean, if someone says
commonly used sense, Dave.
It means getting it on.
I'm so grateful to you. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't actually get it on with spiders, as you might say. But all I can say is I am fascinated by the natural world, and I will do everything in my power to protect it and to enable people to enjoy it. If that qualifies for the phrase animal lover, then okay, I will accept it, but it isn't what I normally mean by love.
And of all the animals, you encountered just about every animal there is in God's kingdom. I mean, which are the ones you don't like? Which are the ones that frighten you?
Well, you were talking about new equipment. The big thing that we've got in the new series is very highly sensitive night cameras, so that you can really see in the dark. And that means that you can record stuff in the dark that you can't see. I mean, you can see it on the monitor.
The presenter can't see.
But the presenter can't see.
The cameraman can see.
That's right, the cameraman can see. So you sit in a Land Rover in the middle of the African plains in the middle of the night, and you can hear this terrible roaring noise coming from within about... and the chap in the airphone who was in the other Land Rover he's got the camera, he's got a monitor, he says, "We've got a lion in front of you." How far in front of you? Don't worry, it's okay. And he's looking very happy. Well, he's roaring. Yes, but if he's looking unhappy, we'll tell you. It could be too late. Don't worry, David, get on with it. Don't waste time. So I've got this shot of me, and nobody will think of anything looking at it on television, because there I am, sitting in an open-sided Land Rover, and it looks kind of like bright moonlight, but I'm sort of, and this lion's going, and I'm saying it's awfully interesting here.
British phlegm.
But well,
grace under pressure.
But that is one of the great new things, and it can be frightening, actually.
Yes.
That you can't see in the dark when everybody else can, you can't.
But now you're 76 now, and you're still working, still turning about. Retirement, do you think about that ever? Don't suppose you do you? It's not a word you understand,
really,
is it?
No, I mean,
right.
I can stand vertical and enough.
And your life story, which you've written, is a fascinating one. People have said, though, that in it there's not much about you yourself, about your personal life and that sort of thing. Why do you kind of exclude that from what you write?
I think there's plenty, and I'm more interested in what is happening to me than within me. I'm not by introspective by nature, I dare say, and I've been lucky enough to see a lot of extraordinary things, and that's what I've been writing about.
Making programs, that's the thing. Well, that's what you've done for 50 years, and thank God you have. And the book's fascinating read, it really is. David Attenborough, thank you very much indeed. My thanks to David Attenborough, Eddie Izzard, Nigella Lawson and David Gray. My guests next week are Steve Coogan, Jeremy Paxman, Elaine Stritch and Diana Kroll. We'll leave you tonight with music from Chris Rea, here singing Dancing the Blues Away from his stunning new album called Dancing Down the Stony Road. Until next week, from all of us here, a very good night. Good night.
up soul, looking to find a smile. Ain't nobody here to give you the reason why. I need the wings of an angel, need to find me a way to fly. Come on and dance with me, baby, dancing my blues away. Come on, dance with me, baby.